Hey Adam, what's up? I read your blogs and I wanted to chat to you about them. Before we get started, can you introduce yourself for everyone watching at home?
Hey Ryan, sure thing. I'm Adam Reynolds. I'm a Solutions Evangelist here at Mendix.
All right, so for everyone watching, Adam and I work together in the same department here at Mendix. Adam, can you explain a little bit about your career and how you came to work here?
Yeah, now that I'm working in marketing at Mendix, it's been a bit of a strange career path. So I went to university and studied computer science. Straight out of university, I started a job as a .NET web developer. I spent a good 13 years working in .NET as a full stack developer. So bit of database, bit of back end, bit of front end, quite a lot of JavaScript, all that fun stuff. Moving on from there, I was hired as a lead developer at a company who just decided to go into low-code. It was a complete change of pace for me, but having done a long time in traditional development, I thought, let's try something new, give it a go. I'd heard of low-code before and I'd written it off completely because having seen old versions of low-code, it just seemed to be business process modeling, and that was about it really. It didn't seem to add anything to development. But times have changed. I thought, try it. I can always go back to .NET development if it doesn't work out. But I had a go and fell in love with low-code at that point. That was about 4 years ago now. Since then, I've never looked back, and I've been working as a low-code developer through 2 different companies, 2 different platforms, and it's been a fantastic experience.
So you were very, very technical, working in .NET, and you looked down on low-code a bit. What made you change your mindset around it? Was there a moment? Was there a project where you worked with it and like suddenly you went, aha, this is great? What made you reconsider your viewpoint on low-code?
Yeah, so I'd been working on a dynamic form builder in the previous job before I started with low-code, and I'd been working on it for a couple of months, and it was fine. It worked. But I went to use low-code and thought, I need to try this out. I need to get to grips with this. So let's do something that I've done before. So I tried to build this dynamic form builder. In the space of a couple of days, I basically reproduced the whole thing. So what had taken me months in .NET to sort out and get working properly, I just achieved in like 48 hours, thereabouts, which made me slam my head on the desk effectively going, well, this is just insane. This can't be real. And it just spiraled from there. Everything I was building was faster, and taking out all of the work that you don't want to be typing SQL statements every day. You don't want to be doing all your database interactions. You want to get rid of that complexity and focus on the product. And I could do that. I could build systems really quickly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's very similar to my own experience as well. But we're here because you wrote a series of blog posts. Can you tell me a bit about them?
Yeah, so working in IT, I spend a lot of time on Reddit. And one of the subreddits is a CS careers forum where people talk a lot about Leet Code. So Leet Code is a website where there are challenges to complete using the most efficient code you can. And I was looking through it, looking at the languages that are used on there and thinking, yeah, I mean, I can see how this works in all these languages, but do you know what? People who do this probably look at this and think you could only do this in true code. So C#, Java, Python, whatever you choose to use. And I was thinking, well, I'm sure you could do this in low code. I mean, would you do it as a practical thing? Probably not. It's not really what it's intended for, but the tools are there to achieve any task you can do in code. So let's have a go. Let's see if we can do it.
Yeah. So I'm very interested. You spoke about Leet Programming. Can you explain a bit more about Leet Programming, what it is, why should we care about this?
So Leet Programming is all about efficiency, essentially, using design patterns to solve problems or challenges with the most efficient code you can, so getting that runtime right down and using as few lines of code as you can. It's all about challenging yourself to write the most optimal experience. Which when you're talking high volume programs and applications and software engineering is a very important thing to do. It's some of the challenges that low code removes for you essentially. It takes out that need for perfection and getting things to the smallest possible increments, because the platform will do it for you. You don't need to worry about it. But what if you did want to? What if you did have an application that was taking a long time to run? How can you optimize these things? And that's the kind of things I wanted to look at.
So it's really about slimming down your code as much as possible to create the most optimal design, shall we say. That's very interesting. And it's something
Absolutely.
that we should always consider as well. We should always strive for, but we don't always get there. And sometimes time constraints, you just get it working, get it out the door. But why do you think in general, low coders are less interested in concepts like design patterns? And do you think this can negatively impact the quality of low code apps out there?
I think you don't need to worry about design patterns as much when you're using low code, because that kind of interaction tends to be wrapped up for you into an existing function. So if you want to get something from the database, you use a retrieve action, and the fine tuning of that retrieve action is handled for you. So you don't really need to worry about it too much. When it comes to design patterns, there's a lot of forgiveness in a low code platform. If you want to do something badly, it'll still probably run quite well just because of the way the software works. But I still think you should consider these things, because if you build an inefficient microflow in Mendix, it can take 5 times longer to run than it needs to. Whereas if you consider it from a design pattern point of view, you can probably increase that efficiency, increase the performance for your end user.
Do you think knowing high coding skills like this should be promoted more in the community?
I think it's always good for people who want to challenge themselves to go and look at these things. They can be viewed as logical problems almost, so it's a good brain training exercise if nothing else. And certainly if you're suffering with a slow running application, then yeah, consult design patterns and try and implement them where you can in your low code application.
So where can people go to learn more about these sorts of things? Is there specific resources where people can go and sort of upskill in these techniques, in these frameworks, in these design patterns?
So the best place to start is leetcode.com. There's 1,000+ challenges on there now. There's a whole community built around it where you can ask questions, find other people's solutions, see what they've done. There's even the ability to build your solutions on the site in languages that are often used, like C#, like Python. You can submit your code, run it, and it'll tell you whether it's a good solution or a bad solution. So that's a great place to start. And if you do struggle with it, searching for that problem on Google or whatever search engine you choose to use will turn up a load of people who've said, this is how I did it, and give you a step-by-step breakdown. And then you can follow that rabbit hole all the way down, find YouTubers who've solved it and will tell you about the design patterns and how they work.
Do they have any challenges on Mendix? Sorry, this is just something that's occurring to me. Are there Mendix challenges
no.
on Leet Programming?
Not on LeetCode, no. It's all high code challenges. There's a whole bunch of different languages, but no, they don't touch on low code. I think mainly because of the way the development community views low code. If you talk to a developer about low code, they'll just turn around and say, oh, it's Wix or Squarespace. You use it to build websites. Or if you're lucky, you'll find one that says, oh, you could build a single form application, but that's it. And that's kind of one of the myths that I'm trying to break with this, is that it's not just for building a simple form or for building a pretty website. You can do anything you can do with programming languages in it. You can build any kind of application to any scale. It shouldn't just be dismissed as a, oh, well, I'm just going to go and make a website that looks a bit like eBay to sell some stuff. There's so much more you can do with it.
Where do you think this sort of misconception about low code comes from?
I think there's been a lot of marketing historically that's made developers feel almost attacked, because people, certainly back, say, 10 years ago when I was a developer, and sort of there was conversations around the low-code space, it was, we don't need developers anymore. Business analysts can do it now. Or anyone in the business can build an application. Whilst it's true to an extent that, yes, you can give it to a business analyst or an SME with some technical knowledge, and they could build a simple system, It's not about replacing developers. And we need to sort of take a step away from that and help developers to understand that we're not here to replace you, we're here to help you. It's like saying, when I went to university, I did a module in assembly. So line by line, it would follow the code, and you could do go-to commands to go to a different section. That was one of the earliest programming languages. After that, we did a module on C++. Once again, it's really sort of complex into the depths of development. But after that, we moved on to object-oriented languages like Java, C#. And it's taking away some of that abstraction and making it less difficult and more accessible. And that's all low-code is. It's another level. It's making it more accessible, taking away the complications, just giving you the tools you need to build applications without having to worry about memory buffers and pointers and all the technical stuff that just get in the way at the end of the day. Let's just make it simple to build whatever you want to build.
I actually wrote about this recently, where people who, ever since we sort of moved away from assembly and from binary code, people have always complained about, it's abstraction, it's not true code. We've always started using libraries and all these sort of things to help us in our coding. Like what is really different between using a Node.js module or a React library from using a low-code framework? It just doesn't make sense to me that coders they look down at us for using pre-made components where they themselves use pre-made components. They just do it in a text base instead of visually.
That's
somehow
the difference entirely. Is they type a function name, we just drag a component to the page. That's the only difference.
Yeah, it's funny. In your blogs, you talk about how you've done things like this before as a high coder, sort of Leet Programming challenges. How does it compare replicating these challenges in Mendix?
Yeah, so, I mean, some of the things I've done before, I've done interfaces for recording devices called speech mics. I've written software for touchscreen monitors to turn them into televisions. I've written sentiment analysis engines. So I've done all sorts of different programming things in C#. And then looking at these problems on Leet code, I could see in my mind how I'd fix it if I was doing it in C# and how I'd build that. So trying to convert that into the microflow format of Mendix was quite challenging because you have to think about things in a different way. The way data's stored is slightly different. And obviously low-code tries to help you by most things get stored in a database. So you've got to work around that because most Leet code problems say, you've got this array of data. Well, we don't really have arrays in Mendix. We have database tables and lists. So it's trying to see things from a slightly different angle and merging the two concepts together. It is quite tricky, but that's the fun of it, is it's a challenge and it's something new to try.
Yeah. I quite enjoyed your problem where you were taking in an array of data and then converting it into actual objects using a delimiter or a substring. I found like that's such a Mendix problem where it's like, you get this array from an API or somewhere, and then now you have to break it up and chunk it away into your database to work with it. It was just funny to see that like, no matter where you go, you run into little problems like that.
Absolutely.
So in your 3 blogs, you built essentially 3 different apps or 3 different use cases out. In any of the scenarios you built out, did applying these sort of principles, these design patterns, did it increase performance in any of the scenarios you built? Because you start with a brute force and then you work to a more efficient method. Can you talk about performance and can you explain why it increases the performance?
So the first challenge I attempted, I took into account the efficiencies because I wanted to see, if I start with brute force, how long is it going to take? And it was taking seconds to process the data, which doesn't seem like a long time, but as a user, that could be an eternity. And then I started progressing to the more efficient pointer-based solution, at which point the time started dropping to milliseconds. So it's clear to see that there are improvements that can be made even in low code. The main thing is thinking about what is called big O notation, which anyone who studied programming will immediately know what that is. It's all about efficiency and how nesting loops, and for example, can drastically impact the efficiency of your application. So as a Mendix developer, you've certainly got to take that into account and learn from those things. Because if you start doing nested queries in Mendix, your application's soon going to slow down. So you need to consider, well, how can I do this in a more efficient way? In the case of that first exercise, it was only dealing with the absolute maximum number you need to get to the solution. So starting at one end of the list and the other end of the list and moving inwards till you get to the point where you're like, that's the solution, rather than just checking every single piece of data. There's always lessons to be learned from these challenges.
And that's really the essence of this Leet coding thing, is about best practices, what is the most efficient way to do it, and looking at unnecessary things in your code. If people want to read your blogs, where can they go to find them? Where are they going to be posted?
On the Mendix.com website, you'll find a blog section, and they're all going to be posted in there for the community to see. Please take a look. I'll also share them on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me if you've got any questions or if you've got any suggestions. I'm always happy to tackle challenges. If there's a particular thing that we think we can't do in low code that you can do in normal code, ask the question. I'd love to hear from you.
That's you seem to, like what you said there, you seem to like challenging yourself to build apps which generally you wouldn't consider this a use case for low code. Why do you like to set yourself challenges like these when no one expects you to do them besides yourself?
I like setting myself challenges to help develop myself, essentially. I've built, over my career, I've built applications at every end of the spectrum. I've done web applications, I've done desktop applications, I've done mobile applications. When a new application comes to me these days, generally it's a problem or a combination of problems I've solved before. So I like finding new challenges, new problems, stuff that I've maybe not seen. Because if you're not doing something new, you're not growing as a developer. You need to make sure you keep challenging yourself, keep finding new problems. And there's also the side of it where people think low code can't do these things. Personally, I take that as a bit of an attack, and I like to prove that, you know what, low code's as good as any other language. Yes, it's different. It's a new way of thinking. You don't get lines of code at the end of it to be proud of, but you do get beautiful microflows and domain models, and most importantly, an application for your users or customers that works.
Why do you think people say, like, oh, you can't do that system on low code? It won't work. Like, what are some of the reasons you think people look down on low code for sort of high traffic, high volume apps when we know it can work? We know we've proven it can work. Why do people still have that stereotype view of it?
I think it predominantly just stems from a lack of understanding. Mostly, people don't dig into low code enough to see what it can do for them. They'll see an example on a website somewhere that someone's built. And we all know that if you're building an example, you do hello world, you do a to-do list. These are the examples you typically build just because it's quick and easy. And people see that and go, well, that's what it does. Well, actually, that's not what it does. That's what it can do, sure. But there's so much more that it can do. I mean, we've got customers out there like PostNL who've built entire enterprise applications on there. We're not talking a small company here. We're talking massive companies with full enterprise systems, and they run fine. I mean, we're built on cloud-hosted clusters here. We can scale up, scale down. It's no different to deploying your low-code solution to your regular solution to a cloud server. You can do absolutely anything, and people need to understand that. And rather than just looking at Power Apps for free and going, well, Power Apps does this, that's what every low-code platform does. Power Apps, again, is a completely different kettle of fish. Power Apps does small applications. It's designed for that. It's perfect for that. Proper low-code platforms are much more robust and scale much better, and are designed for doing absolutely anything you can do with regular code.
Before we go, any last thoughts on lead coding or low code in general in Mendix? Is there any conclusions that you want people to take away?
I think people from both sides need to stop and look at the other side. If you're a developer, don't write off low code. Talk to somebody who uses it every day. Take a look at examples. Have a go. You can sign up for free and try it out. But if you're a low coder, don't write off the Leet code challenges. There's stuff in there that will challenge the way you think about how you build applications. You can increase your efficiency in microflows by looking at these design patterns and reusing them within your flows. It is entirely possible. And please read the blog posts and get back to me if there's anything you want to talk to me about or any challenges you've got. Please let me know.
Adam, it was really great to talk to you. Those were some really amazing insights. For anyone looking to read Adam's blogs, you can head over to mendix.com/blog, or soon they will be reposted on medium.com/Mendix for anyone looking to read them. Adam, it was great. Cheers.
Thanks, Ryan. It's been a pleasure.